What's up, everybody? We're here with another Bible study with me and Tanner. Went really good last week and excited to do it again this week. This time we're going to do it fireside style. It's our timer. It's going to be an hour, so if we know if the fire goes out, we've been talking a little bit too long. So we're excited about this. We're going to go back into Numbers this week. We stopped in chapter 31 last week is where we finished up, and we're going to pick it back up again here in 32. I'm excited to do this. I know these are long. I know we spent a long time last week doing these things, but I encourage you again, don't feel like you have to watch it in one session. I feel like you have to watch it all at one time. Take it little bit by little bit. Take it just maybe 20 minutes here, 20 minutes there, and then, just take your time to go through it. Don't feel like you have to do it in one session. If you haven't watched last week's, I encourage you to watch last week's. It went really good. Really enjoyed doing it last week. That's why I wanted to come back and do it again this week. So, with that being said, how you doing, Tanner?
Can you get over this?
Can you get over the fire? Pretty awesome. It's a roaring fire now. It started out small. You been busy?
It's been pretty quiet.
Yeah.
Besides, moving cattle here and there for Willie. But pretty much just quiet. It's too quiet.
Just too quiet. It's too quiet. Well, we're going to get into this. So we finished up with 31. They had just conquered the Midianites, I believe it was, and now they've divided out the take and divided out what they had took from them, and now they're going into 32. What they've done now is they have found some pretty good land, and they've got some tribes that's going to come up and ask some kind of different things, but I'm going to let Tanner start us off and let y'all see what he got from it.
Well, 32 is actually, at first glance, you don't think nothing of it. Not really a lot to it. These next couple of chapters, you really, if you just look at it at a base view, it's not a lot.
Yeah.
But it really is. You dig a little deeper into it, which is not easy, but it takes time and God opening it up to you. But in chapter 32, we see these two tribes, 2.5. It says 2.5 later on in Scripture, but it's the Reubenites and the Gadites, and it's right before they cross the Jordan into the land of Canaan, and these 2.5 groups or tribes see this land and they're like, hey, this is really good for livestock. It's very fertile. So hey, let's go talk to Moses and say, hey, we don't need to go any further.
Yeah. Let's
stay behind. And actually, in verse 5 of 32, it says, they said, if we have found favor with you, let this land be given to your servants as a possession. Don't make us cross the Jordan. It's key words of that last sentence says, don't make us cross the Jordan. But in verse 6 it says, but Moses asked the Gadites and the Reubenites, should your brothers go to war? Should your brothers go to war while you stay here? Why are you discouraging the Israelites from crossing into the land the Lord has given? And so, just a little look back is previously, this happened. The spies went out, they came back, discouraged Israel from going any further, and then what happened? All of them but Caleb was cursed to the fact that they don't get to go into the land that God promised.
Yep.
They don't get to see what Abraham promised from God at the end.
Yeah.
And so Moses saw this as, hey, this is happening again. No, we're not doing this. But actually, Moses even pointed out that first little line says, should your brothers go to war without you while you stay here? Mm-hmm. Moses is like, this is not just about the land. I know, this is a good land. Yeah, I understand this is great for your cows.
Yeah.
It's great and fertile land for them grazing. But I'm looking at this a lot deeper. You're scared to continue.
Yeah. You
don't want to go any further.
Yeah.
Even though this land is laid out before you in Canaan that God has promised for a long time.
Yeah.
But you're scared to go. Mm-hmm. You're scared to go to war.
Yeah.
Has not God not delivered you? God not helped you get to this point?
Yeah.
And yet He wants to finish it, but you're too scared to go any further.
Mm-hmm.
And so He points that out. And, I was just kind of thinking, how many, and this is really good point back to us as a church is we're seeing growth, we're seeing all this, and we know God has so much more down the road, so much more salvations, and it could be the point where the church is booming numbers-wise is crazy. We have so many different services, or it could not, but we know that God has something in store.
Yeah.
It's in our lives. It's to grow us.
Yeah.
Yet we get comfortable in the point where this is nice. We're doing great. So we got a lot of new people. We got a lot of new youth. Got a lot of children's is going great. Youth's going great.
Yeah.
Church is going great. I don't really need to give as much as I was giving before.
Yeah.
I think it's a good time for me to just hey back and just cultivate what we got now.
Yeah.
Just stop and
let's maintain where we're at. Maybe let's just stop and be fine where we're at. Maybe.
But like Moses says here, God has so much more to go, and so it's like pointing back to the fact is, hey, I know this is great. A lot of things are going on that are great right now, and it's comfortable. But hey, there's so much more to go.
Yeah.
There's so much more that can happen, and so much more that I can give you.
Yeah.
There's gonna be hard times. Heck, we're going through one right now.
Yeah.
We don't get to see each other.
Yeah.
We don't get to hug each other because this church loves hugging each other.
Yeah.
I know me and Saul love hugging everybody. But it's the fact that as we got so comfortable, then this happened, and we know that God has so much more, and we're seeing that because our eyes are opened to how comfortable we were before and how much more we can do. And this has been the time for me to reflect on. We can go so much further with the youth.
Yeah. We
can do so much more. Is stop being comfortable with what we got and cultivate what we got. Yeah, I know the need to cultivate what we have, but there's more that I can cultivate.
Yeah.
There's more land that is promised. There's more kids I get to influence.
Yeah.
And so I think it's great that Moses is saying, hey, dude, I know we made a promise to God. We're going to keep it. We made a promise to God to pour into others. We need to keep it.
Mm-hmm.
And the loss doesn't just, stop. Lostness is still everywhere.
Yeah.
There's still tons of people that don't know who Christ is. I drove a school bus before all this ended.
Yeah.
I still got hired on full time before this all went down, and I was the Lord moving in that. But I had a radio on the bus, and so I flipped it over to I don't remember the radio station, but it's not Caleb. It was the other one.
1.7 maybe.
That's somewhere in there. I don't know. And they started. They're singing about Jesus. I don't remember what song it was. And they started talking about Jesus on the radio. And I could hear in the back of the bus going, "Who's Jesus? Why they keep talking about him?
Yeah.
Who's he in something important?"
Yeah.
And I was on this is a bus full of 50-some kids.
Yeah.
It's crazy that we get comfortable and we want to slow down. There's so much more lostness out there. There's a whole generation growing up that doesn't even know who Jesus, never heard his name.
Yeah.
And there's generations before that. It's just multiplied and it's come bigger and bigger to the point where that's why we see a nation that we're growing up in that's pulling away from God.
Yeah.
I 2 seconds ago, I opened my phone, and the first thing that pulled up was a news article from New York saying that an anti-gay evangelist is helping out in the city of New York.
Mm.
We all know who his father is, Billy Graham's son, Franklin Graham. This is the world that we've come into because the church has been lazy the years prior, being comfortable where we were at, where we didn't continue to share the gospel.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think in ways this will push a lot of churches to get uncomfortable, to do things different. We've been in the outdoor service the last last 2 weeks or so, and hope maybe we can continue to do it throughout this time. But I do think comfort gets us a lot of times, and I think one thing that was worried here by Moses, I think it was past failures too. He saw the past failures of the old generation. He saw the past failures of, okay, we tried to take this land before, and we failed because we spied it out, and then we came back and people were spreading discouragement and whatever. And Moses had some legit concerns with this idea of what the two tribes wanted to do. He was saying, no, you're not going to do this. He was thinking, as soon as they come up, he said, this is exactly what your forefathers did. This is exactly what happened the last time we came to this point. You went out and you saw it, and you came back, and you're spreading discouragement to others. And that's a lot of times what happens with churches is not only does one person to get discouraged, nobody wants to be misery loves company. Nobody wants to be just one person miserable. They want a lot of people to be miserable. So when they spied the land, they came back and it spread out more discouragement. Well, now Moses is afraid of this happening here, which is a legitimate concern for Moses because they've been in the wilderness for 40 years now. They've conquered this land, and they've looked out there, and they get two tribes that come up, and these two tribes say, hey, let us stay here in this land. It's a great land for us to have all the livestock, and we're providing food for y'all and doing all this stuff. Like, man, we can stay here, and we'll be fine. Like, of course, there's going to be other people and other tribes that might go, well, heck, we want to do that too. Like, why don't we just stay here too? Why don't we all just build cities right here and just stay here instead of going and conquering, Canaan, But so I think Moses had legitimate concerns here, and that he was correct in being worried about this being discouragement. But there's one thing that he flips the script, and I think he does a really good job here of being a leader that we as pastors and we as leaders need to be. So he comes to them in the first few verses, and they say, look, we need to do this. He said, man, we don't want to go to war. We don't want this to happen. And Moses said, how can you sit back here in this land comfortably and not go to war while your brothers do it? And so then they come up in verse 16, and they say this in verse 16, chapter 32. He says, then they came near to him. So now, this is probably like the head leader, so they kind of draw, like, look, Moses, like, let's sit down at a table together. At first, they probably were sending some feelers out there, and they got that response from Moses, and they went, ooh, we didn't think about it that way. Let's sit down at a table and have a conversation then. So then what they do in verse 16, they come and they say, let's come near, and they said, we will build here sheepfolds for our entire stock. We ourselves will be armed and ready to go before the sons of Israel until we have brought them to their place, while our little ones in their fortified cities become the inhabitants of the land. We will not return to our homes until every one of the sons of Israel has possessed their inheritance. For we will not have an inheritance with them on the other side of Jordan and beyond, because our inheritance has fallen on this side of the Jordan. And so then you have Moses, verse 20, so Moses says to them, if you will do this, if you will arm yourselves before the Lord, be ready for war, and all of your armed men cross over Jordan before the Lord, and until he has driven out the enemies and all them before him, and from the land subdued the Lord, and then afterwards you shall be free of obligation and toward the Lord and toward Israel. And for this land shall be yours, and for your possession for the Lord. Then he gives them this warning in verse 23. He says, but if you do not do so, behold, you have sinned against the Lord, and be sure your sin will find you out. Everybody likes to quote that. Be sure your sin will find you out. He says, build yourselves cities for your little ones and sheepfold for your sheep, and do what you have promised to do. So it's really good that Moses did this, because Moses had legit concerns from past failures. Moses had legit concerns because he's sitting here going, hey, I didn't get to go in this promised land because of people being discouraged and people being naysayers and then spreading discouragement and spreading this stuff. What they do differently here is the people is they go, let's talk about this then. I get your concern, Moses. I get where you're struggling with this. Let's sit down and talk about this. Let me know what your problem is. And Moses probably close. He said, look, I'm concerned that you get to stay here and not go to war while we go to war. I don't get why you get to do that and while we're going to war. And they said, well, what if we send our armed men? What if we stand ready? You're right. It's not right that we stay here and don't have an inheritance, but you get to cross and you have to fight this fight that we've all been called to. So I love what Moses does is he finds a compromise. As leaders, that's what I think is sometimes the hardest thing to do, especially in the situation that we're dealing with now, is finding these compromises. And they're not always perfect. I thought about this when I've been reading it is, there's probably some of the tribe of Benjamin or, some of the other tribes that may have thought, like, it's not fair that they still get to take that land. And Moses probably tell them, like, oh, look, they're still going to come and fight with us. So they're like, yeah, but, like, they don't have to do this, that, or the other, There's probably still some animosity there, and probably some discourse there. But Moses said, look, this is a good compromise. Our sheep can stay here. Our livestock can stay here. We're not having to tote them around anymore, finding food for them. They can stay here, and all they got to do is send us food as we're going through this conquest. It probably worked out really well for them in the end. But it's like anything. When you find compromise, there's always people on each side that feel like they have a better idea than the other. But I think Moses did the best thing going, I don't want this to spread discouragement in the camp. And this time that we're going through now, one thing I do worry about is people spreading discouragement, I think one thing great to do in this time is encourage one another. Is, man, reach out to people and encourage them in this time. We've got nothing but that, honestly. You don't, that's all you really have. That negativity doesn't fix anything, especially negativity for the sake of negativity. And I think sometimes that's what we do. We just breed it. Once it begins, and once people get entrenched in an opinion or people get entrenched in an idea, then it's so hard to get people out of it. But I love that Moses swayed here. That Moses went, all right, I'll let you stay, but you better come help us. Because if you don't, you've made a commitment to the Lord and to us that He will hold you accountable in that. And so I think Moses does a good thing to go, I've done my part, now you do your part.
Yeah, and it goes back to what we talked about last week with the vows.
Yeah, exactly.
Right back to that.
Exactly. Yep, they made a vow. He said the Lord will hold you to that vow. Don't you forget that you've made this commitment, not to me as Moses, but you made it to the Lord. And that's what I think as a leader, that's how you can let stuff go. Could these tribes betray them? Sure. Could these tribes be like, no, we're not sending our guys and betray them? But Moses understands that vengeance isn't his. Moses understood it's like, if you don't come, what like Moses said, if you don't come, we're coming back and we're taking this land from you. He didn't say that. Moses said, you know that you've made a promise to God here, and if you don't keep it, God will get you for that.
And we just look at chapter 31 with Midian.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, as a leader, it's so hard to try. It is hard that you want to control everything. That's a struggle because you feel like, as a leader, that's what you want to do. You want to lead. I don't feel like it's a bad desire to feel like, okay, I want to lead things. I want to lead stuff. But there does come a time where you have to go, okay, I want to compromise. And the way you go compromise is that you understand I can't control them. I can take them at their word. We can find a center ground here. And I give my piece. And they say they gave me their piece. Now, whether or not they hold it up or not is not up for me. You know what I'm saying? I can't worry about that. The Lord's going to take care of that side of it. And I think that's what Moses did so good here was he said, be sure that your sin will find you out. You're doing this to me, we're having this, but just know it's about you and the Lord, not me and you. And I think that's where trust is built, is where agreements and relationships are built on the Lord and not individuals. As a youth pastor, I'm going to let you down as a pastor at times. There's going to be something that, that I may let fall through the cracks or that I may have not handled the best way that even you feel like that way. But the way you let go of things and the way you get forgiveness, you give forgiveness to people, is understanding going, the Lord will take care of that. Whether it was Saul purposely did that or he accidentally did that, the Lord will hold him accountable in that. It's not my job to hold Saul accountable. Just like it's not my job to hold people accountable when, they may slip up. I may go talk to them and say, hey, where was you at? What happened here? And they go, oh, well, hey, you told me you weren't. You told me you were going to do that, and like you didn't. So, it kind of hurt me. Hey, ain't nothing to do about it, but just know that was between you and the Lord, And I like how Moses was able to come to that compromise. I like he was able to be stern while not being a dictator. You know what I mean? Not having to be like that. No, you're not going to do that. It was a good middle ground that he found, and that's what I love about Moses is his leadership here was spot on in how to handle this situation, because it could have been really bad. It could have been really bad if he'd have just been like, fine, y'all stay, and we don't need you. Well, then you could have had a lot of other tribes that would have been like, well, we're going to stay with them too, and you could have caught a lot of discourse that way. So I think Moses handled this very touchy situation that had grounds to be on, that he handled it in such a good way. I mean, he handled it in about a perfect way as you could. So it's a good insight to how leaders we can compromise with things. You got anything else?
Yeah, so it was something that I noticed when I was looking at this version and also the NKJV. But on verse 17 it says, this is the Gadites and the Reubenites, and they're responding and saying, but we will arm ourselves and be ready to go ahead of the Israelites. And so they quickly, after Moses pointed out the fact that, hey, you're chickening out of the fight, that you promised that you would do for God, they're like, all right, we're acknowledging the fact that we slipped up. we're being afraid of something we shouldn't be afraid of, and then saying, well, here, we're going to go one step further. I'm not going to just rejoin the army. We're going to go ahead of the army.
Yeah.
We're going to lead the attack. We're going to be the forefront to make up for our mistake of being selfish.
Yeah.
And so I think it was a cool aspect of, hey, we could give...
We'll fully support you.
We can give what we're asked of by the Lord, but no, we're going to go a step further. We're going to go even further than that and make up. Just like with the army giving more than what they needed, the gold last time when they beat the Median.
Yeah.
Is they're saying, hey, you know what? We've realized our mistake. We're going to give more than what we're asked. We're going to lead the army into battle. We're going to go ahead of them. We're going to be the first ones in battle, knowing that, hey, the first ones that hit into battle are usually the ones that die first.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be there fighting a lot longer than the people behind you.
Yeah.
And so I think that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, that is really good. Yep. And it shows the full support. They support each other. Moses supported them and then staying back, and they supported Moses by saying, we'll lead the charge then in battles. We'll fully support you, and you fully support us. And that's how people, that's how we compromise, is that once you've made an agreement, once you've understood, you go, all right, now I'm going to fully support you going forward. Now I've got your back. Now we're going to, like you said, lead this fight here. Yeah, that's really good. What'd you think of 33?
33 and 34 are tricky. I'm trying to not mix them both up. But I think 33 is a good review. Talking about it's Moses' review of how they got to this point. What it took, where they've been to get to where they are.
Yeah.
And this is, to me, I believe this is after they've conquered everything, because it just goes straight into the boundaries, which I haven't read ahead yet. But
the way I feel like in verse 33 is this is just them kind of reminiscing. This is Moses jotting down all the things that kind of reminiscing. Depends on if it was Joshua that wrote Numbers or if it was Moses. Depends on what you feel. But I feel like this was coming toward the end of Moses' time, kind of toward the end of what was going on. And so to me, this in 33 is just them reviewing this long, crazy journey through all the way from the Exodus of Egypt to where they're at now. I feel like it's been it was just a time to take stock of the past, to take and go, okay, here's where we were, here's where we are now, and to leave this account of what it was.
an account where God has led them and brought them, and now where He's finishing.
Now He's finishing. Yep. Yeah, for sure. One thing I like about this, and what I love, and what I want to talk to Heather about doing, it's great to look back and take stock of what God's done for you. You know what I mean? Like, I want to talk to Heather about maybe doing a thing like going, hey, Heather, or telling Heather, like, hey, I want you to, like a Facebook post where everybody posts, like, the best thing in the last few years of Baldwin. Like, what they've really, like, what do they most enjoyed about the church? Like, oh, man, I really love this and I miss this. You know what I'm saying? Like, whether it was a women's ministry thing we did or a men's ministry thing we did, or, like, maybe it was just a service at church that they could repost. Because one thing right now that we need to do is remember some good times. You know what I mean? And there's bad times, and they're remembering some bad times here when they're wandering through the wilderness, but they're also remembering a lot of good times, leaving all of the bondage of the Egyptians in the early on, remembering that, all these things that they're doing. I think there's nothing wrong with reminiscing about the past and looking back, and it helps you have perspective that God is good. Like right now when we're in this time of like not having church and the social distancing stuff and all this stuff, it's hard to remember that like life was good. Life was really good. God was blessing not just our church, but a lot of churches in the area were being blessed. And one thing that's been on my mind as I read this chapter is maybe we need to remind people of that man, church is great. We miss it. We're looking forward to a future like he did here. He ended it by going, all right, look, don't forget, in the last verse he said, don't forget, he said, I speak to you that you will go into the inhabitants of the land of Canaan and you will utterly destroy them in 52. He's telling them, going, hey, look, don't forget, you've got a really good future coming for you too. And so something maybe I'd like to see us do as believers here in this time is Maybe post something about the past that you love. Be like, man, I really love my church because this thing we done here, and I'm really excited about getting back together, or I'm really excited about this thing that I can't wait for us to do when everything gets back to normal. Because I do believe there's a victory on the other side of this. I do believe there's an end to this. I was having a conversation with somebody, and they asked me a question, said, do you believe that this can be a great awakening for the church? And I said, yes, 100% I do. I think, no doubt, that in this time, a lot of people is realizing how much the church meant and how much they missed just the fellowship of believers. But we would be foolish to think that Satan could not use it for the exact opposite thing. We'd be foolish to think that Satan couldn't use this to discourage believers from meeting, to go, look, you've not met for 8 weeks as a church. Do you really miss it that much? Well, if we as believers, if we as the body of Christ, does it let them know that, yes, we missed this. Yes, this is important. Yes, this is something that we desire to have. Then people are going to go the other way. If we want an awakening, if we want a church awakening this time, if we want this to be, one thing I'd love to do, and I'm really excited, is like the very first service that we have back in the sanctuary. I'm so interested to see how that goes. Like, I'm interested to see the interactions. I've seen so many videos that people post on Facebook and stuff about, like, me running down the aisles and, like, picking people up and shouting and stuff, which I'll probably do. But I'm excited to see, like, people's reaction. Like, are we excited to be able to come back into the body? Or are we cautious about coming back into the body? Or are we, like, what's our reaction to, like, coming back together? Well, I think it's going to be how we handle this time. I think it's how we handle it now. If we're sitting around and, like, cowering down in fear and going, this thing's terrible, it's never going away, well, when that time does come, we're going to be barely peeking out the door. But when the time comes that we can go back to normal, if for weeks, if months, whatever it may be, if we've been, I can't wait till that day. I can't wait for it. I can't wait. If we've talked about it with people, if we've encouraged people in it, then when the church doors are open, there'll be more people in that church than ever before. Because they're going, man, I seen y'all posting on Facebook about all y'all's past memories, and y'all couldn't wait to get together, so I just had to come and see what this thing's about, now that the doors are open again. So I think one thing about this chapter was good for them is to, like, look back and reflect and go, God's been good. God's been so good, and He's going to be good. He told him, He said, I will utterly destroy it, but He did give him a warning. He gave him 55, He says, but if you do from before you, then it will come about for those whom let you remain them, they have pricked in your eye and as thorns in your side, and they will trouble you in the land which you live. And as I plan to do to them, I will do to you. God's telling him, let me give you a warning though. If you don't do these things, if you don't do what I tell you to do, there are going to be some repercussions. If we belittle the church in this time, if we act like it's not a big deal, if we put the church, it's so crazy, non-essential, essential things. If we put the church in this non-essential category, there will be some punishment to come with that. There will be some people that start going, so it was non-essential? That was non-essential. The church was non-essential to you? For the church to meet, for the church to do anything, it was non-essential? I think there is something to us in this time of building up the body in a way, even if we can't physically come together, that we let people know we yearn for the body to come together because we love the past of the time that we've come together, and we yearn for a future time for us to come together. That's something that I think we as a church in this time really need to do, is encourage the church to go. When those doors are open, it is going to be a great day in the community when we're able to go back into a normal. I cannot wait for a normal Sunday. I never thought I would say that, but I cannot wait for us to be able to sit in our, just sit back in our pews like we normally do, to enjoy worship, to be able to hug each other like we've talked about, to be able to shake hands with one another, to be able to pray with one another. You know what I've thought about so much is an altar call. Like to have an altar call where people can come down to an altar where we know the Lord's at, and people get to pray with maybe a lost person or people that are struggling, that right now they're going 6 feet from one another. I get you can still pray, but there's something different about people coming down to His altar and then laying hands on them and going, I just want you to know it's all about you right now. I'm praying for you. I'm lifting you up since you come in. Like, those are the kind of things, I look forward to that future. I look forward to getting back to that. I look forward to being able to get in our building the that God has blessed us with and pack that thing out with people that need the Lord. And in this time, we don't need to forget that. In this time, maybe we need to take some time and look back and go, man, I really enjoyed the church in this time. I really appreciate the church for this. And then maybe write some things that you're looking forward to, and just encourage people in that this time. That's something that I really got out of 33 that I love. It was a reminiscing time for them. Maybe a good time for when, I could see Moses or Joshua, whoever wrote it, was just excited to write this. That was just pumped. They go, man, look at what God's doing. Look what God's doing. And now he's going to do this. And they put that warning going, we better do it, because if not, it can be some negative things if we don't, And so that's what I got at 33. I really like 33. I thought it was a good little reflection time for the writer.
Yeah, that's the reason this just popped up in my head when we were talking about non-essentials and essentials, and talking about where you find the church, essential and non-essential.
Yeah.
It makes me think about back to the roots of a Baptist, Southern Baptist, all the way back to the Anabaptist story that I get to learn about some here back at Truett when I was there, and I can't completely quote it word for word because I wasn't a good student then.
Me neither.
But the fact that these Anabaptists, their lifespan, once they turned and said, hey, baptism is not about this mystic spiritual ritual we do by baptizing a child and saying they're saved. No, it's something to do when you have a believe.
Yeah, relationship.
This is an aspect of, hey, I know God's redeemed me. I know God has forgiven me, and I believe in Him.
Yeah.
That's when I get baptized. And so the time where they did this was not a time of safety. This was, hey, you meet, you die. And so their lifespans weren't that long for the fact that, but I think the beautiful part is they still met. They didn't allow the government then to tell them, hey, you can't do this. The Catholic Church telling you, hey, you can't do this, you can't do this. That's not what we believe. But them saying, hey, I know what God's saying, I know what His Word's saying.
Yeah.
And we're going to meet anyway. They met in caves, they met in hidden houses. They met because they knew that it's more than just pulling out your Bible. It's about a body of believers coming together and worshiping God. And so it's when they looked at it as this is essential.
Yeah.
Because they could have easily just said, well, I know what I believe. I'm going to sit at home and I'm going to be safe.
Yeah.
No, they were like, hey, I know what I believe. I know what God says. God says I need to take His Word. Not send His Word. Take His Word to His people. And worship with His people and be with His people.
Yeah.
And they preached and they didn't last long. But they were killed. But they knew from the day that it was, this is essential. Meeting with other believers is essential. I need to do it. And so we're just looking back at our roots, looking back at what we've come from. We've come from Catholicism into the point where we were men way back when. Yeah. Like Balthasar Hubmaier, I remember because one of the guys I remember. It's in my head. But we come from guys that said, hey, we know we were taught, but this is what God says, and we're going to do it. And we're going to stand up for what we believe in. Yeah. And that, this world is crazy right now, like we talked about in New York, and calling Franklin Graham something he's not. The devil's going to be attacking us like crazy. Yeah. He attacked them like crazy. They were killed for it. They were persecuted. And we don't need to allow this virus to hold us back. Hey, they didn't allow men to hold them back. Yeah. We don't need to allow this to hold us back. And looking back and seeing, hey, we saw the birth of our Baptist roots. Yeah. So many, we didn't see it, but we get to read about it. So many hundreds of years ago, to the fact that, hey, I can't wait to be back with my body of believers. We've come such a long way. We've come so far from where we were, and we get to bring this together, and I can't wait. Yeah. It's like saying with prayer and going down to the altar, I can't wait. Yeah. Because, it's one thing to say, hey, I'm praying for you over text or phone or from afar, but there's something different when someone actually comes up and physically touches you and prays over you.
Yeah, takes that time to do that.
It's that intimate relationship that we talked about last week, the intimacy that we get to do. And, you know, and it's cool that Moses is reflecting and thinking about where he's come, because God has done so much in this time.
Yeah.
God split the sea for them.
Yeah.
He gave them food from the sky.
Yeah.
He gave them the commandments. He's given them so much. He's even allowed them to go back into the land. They screwed up multiple times before then.
Yeah.
God's like, hey, I still want you to go through it. And Moses is looking back and going, God's done so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
God's done so much for us
good.
as a church, and God's done so much for the people right here.
Yeah.
And he's like, Moses is like, hey, don't forget where we've come.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. That's good. I like it. 34. Would you like 34?
34. I didn't write enough notes down to save my life. I'm like, I remember things in the moment. No, you don't. But I don't know. You just look at it and you're thinking, okay, I got the borders. I got the people who's getting commanded. We get to see Caleb, the first one named. He's the only one from that rebellion that gets to actually see the land. And you're like, okay. But it's something cool is the fact that this just shows that God's accomplishing what he set out years ago. And these are the people that get to see their tribes land for the first time. They get to, hey people, come together. This is ours. Yeah. This is where we get to lay our heads. This is where we get to be with our people for as long as the Lord allows it. I think it's pretty cool. And it continues on what was this from 33 says they got to the promised land. They get to be there. They get to have their land. And, you know, in the Gadites and Reubenites, that's so, I don't know if I'm even saying it right. Because I want to say Raven for some reason. Is they still got land, and they're on the other side of Jordan, but it's still connected. Because their tribe of Israel is in the land that God promised. And I think it's just pretty cool.
Why do you think, just to ask you a question, why do you think God took time to do this? Like, you know what I mean? Like, why did God take time to, like, lay out these borders of Canaan and, like, even to the point of, like, who's going to appropriate the land and have this or that? Like, why do you think God took the time to do that?
I think it's because he knows us better than we think. Is when we sit down and try to do things our way, nothing's getting done.
I like that.
You said a bunch of men down in here and try to say, hey, decide what building's going where bridge going where. There ain't nothing going to get done anytime soon.
Yeah.
And God knew that, and God's like, hey, I'm just going to say this. The bigger groups, you're going to get the bigger landmass.
Yeah.
Smaller groups, you're going to get the smaller landmass. Because I know the small group's going to go, oh, no, we need the big land.
Yeah.
We need that big space. I know it's like 4 times as much as what we need. We need it. We get a lot of cows.
Yeah.
But God's like, no, I know better.
That's exactly
I'm going to put it where I know is good for you.
I think you're exact. I think that's exactly why God did. He said, let me save you a lot of heartache, and let me lay out this appropriate way of breaking up this land so you don't have these small squabbles and these disagreements among you. Let me appropriate the land to each tribe, and that way there's no arguments, there's no upsetness. And the other thing I think, though, is, you know, he laid out the borders of Canaan, and I can't remember exactly, but they don't conquer everything that God laid out for them. I think one thing God was doing here is God was saying, let me tell you to the fullest extent of what I want to bless you with. It's up to you whether you get it or not. But I want you to know you can have all of this if you'll take it. I don't know exactly where they didn't get to, but they didn't. They fell short of all the borders that he actually wanted to conquer. And I wonder about that for us as churches and us as believers is how often do we fall short of blessings and promises that God has for us out of maybe unfaithfulness, sin. I think sin gets us a lot of times. How many times do we cut ourselves short of blessings out of just plain, blatant sin that we have chose over God? And God's going, and I wonder if we could see this, like, and I believe we can. I believe we can pray and get God's full picture at times, but I think it would break our hearts as pastors. I know it would mine if God was like, look, Saul, here's this full blessing that I wanted you to have. Here's the full extent of what I wanted you. Man, look at all this. Like I wanted to bless you with these boundaries, but you fell short. You could have had that over there if you'd have just give me more. If you'd have just done this or done that. I had the boundaries way out here, and you stopped short of it. That's always been my worry as a leader, and even as in personal life and personally is how often have I fallen short of ministry and in my personal walk with God because of simple unbelief or unfaithfulness in my part. And honestly, the reason it breaks my heart is these boundaries here are land, but ministry-wise, the boundaries are people. How many people have we not reached maybe because of our unfaithfulness? You know? How many youth have we not reached maybe because we don't want to push ourselves? We don't want to push the youth. We don't want to, we just get distracted with things. You know what I mean? And so I think one thing God was trying to show him was God going, hey, look, I got a big picture here, and I got a big thing that I want you to accomplish, and I want you to know exactly the boundaries to reach. And then if you fall short, no, it was you. And I think that's what we have to realize. When we fall short of a blessing of God, when we fall short of something that He's promised us, it's not God. It's not God that went, oh, I took it back. It's God that goes, you didn't reach it. I'm not stopping you from it. You're stopping yourself. You're only hurting yourself here. God's going, I want you to have that. God told him, this boundary here, He specifically told him, here's the line. You can have it all up to there. I promised you this. And they still fell short of it. They still come short. Even when God told them, here's the line, and they still went, let's not go any farther. And so, I think as believers, we need to always push the envelope. I do believe that. We've got to be the most courageous people. If we feel like God's told us, and we feel like God has blessed us, should we not be the most courageous? When we know God's on our side, should we not be the most, I don't know any way to put it besides courageous, really. I'm trying to think of the word, but I couldn't. Should we not be the most courageous, to push these boundaries and to push ourselves to things that we didn't think we could do if we know God's called us to do them? I think that's one thing here that He's trying to do to the Israelites is tell them, like, hey, I got big plans for y'all. I've got a lot of things I want you to I want you to hit some new heights. And I think you definitely hit it perfectly that God wanted to save some corals. He wanted to know it come from God. You know how easy it would have been for Israel to think, look what we did. You know what I mean? How easy it would have been for Israel to go when they conquered all this land, they become this war nation. Would have been easy for Israel to go, look at what we did. We conquered Jericho. We conquered these people. We fought these people. We fought Philistines. We've done all these things. Look at all these people we've conquered. Look what we did. We conquered this land. We deserve all this. And then it would have been maybe to the point of where they said, well, this tribe fought for this harder, and so they get more land. Mm-hmm. God's reminding them here. God goes, hey, don't forget, I'm the one that gave you this land.
I got you this far.
I got you this far.
You didn't get this far because if you wanted to go as far as you wanted to, you wouldn't have never made it past the first time you rebelled against me.
That's exactly right. That is exactly
You wouldn't even left Egypt.
Yep. You would have stopped at the Red Sea and they'd have said, hey, let's turn around and go back because there's a river in front of us. It was God that parted that water. It's God that's fighting these battles for him here. And God's around here. It's me that fought the battles, won the land, and it's me that gives the blessings. That's what helps us not argue about it and not get greedy. There was no greed here after this. How can you be greedy when you look and go, man, God's the one that gave us this. It wasn't that tribe took more or this tribe took. It's God has blessed us with this, and so I'm thankful that God has blessed me with what we have. I'm not looking over there because I know God's gave me this over here. And this time right now, with so many people losing jobs and losing money, we better cling to this, that God is the one that's blessing us right now. God's the one that gives it. People don't take it away. And be blessed in what God gives you. Be satisfied in what God gives you. That's what I got from these last two chapters. Really good chapters. Anything else to add?
Just a reflection, just a little bit. Just thinking about what we got to talk about last time the youth met, and been going through Acts this year, and all of a sudden it just got halted. But this kind of goes with what, kind of like what we're going through is the fact that hey, they knew God gave them where to go.
Yeah.
God said He gave them the boundaries.
Yeah.
They could have went as far as He said, but they didn't. And we as church sometimes do that. In the fact, we get in our way, we get comfortable, we get to the point where we're like, we allow our sin to stop us, or we allow our fear to hold us back instead of being bold. And you know, just think about, you know, the time of the disciples in Acts in the early church. What if the first time the Sanhedrin pulled Peter and John and said, "No, you can't do this anymore," and they just stopped.
They quit. Yeah.
They're like, "Well, we've got 3,000 people coming to Christ.
Yeah.
All right, we're good.
We're good. Yeah, stop."
Then this boundaries, we would never see that the world almost all is still majority Christian.
Yeah.
2,000 years later.
Yeah.
It's because these men didn't say, well, God had told them, hey, be to the ends of the earth. Acts 1:8, go be in Judea, Jerusalem, Samaria, to the ends of the earth. He said He gave them the border to the ends of the earth. That's the whole entire earth.
Yeah, there was none. Yeah.
But see, they didn't allow the persecution. They didn't allow the things to get in their way and stop them. And so we see the Israelites. We don't know what stopped them. Sin, the fact that hey, we're comfortable with the fact that hey, we got enough land for our tribe. We don't need more. But we don't see that in the disciples. They kept going to the day they died.
Yeah.
They kept going because if they stopped, how many thousands, how many millions down the road would never known Christ?
Yeah.
And we as a church, that shows us we don't need to stop.
Yeah.
We as pastors don't need to stop.
Yeah.
We never need to stop because of the fact that our boundaries are to the ends of the earth, and we need to see that in our own eyes.
Yeah.
And so when we're talking about hey, be bold in your conversation. This the last Wednesday night I told that we had this conversation. Hey, you don't know when the last time you get to share the gospel with somebody. You don't know the last time that, hey, some of you in Habersham, I was talking in Habersham specifically, I said, hey, you're about to go to high school.
Yeah.
You're in a school system that has multiple middle schools. You might not ever see the same people ever again. Yeah. Hey, you might not ever see the seniors. You might not ever see the same people ever again. And how many of you, and you think about it, look at it, school year's over. We found out. How many people did you miss for the fact that you put it off and said, I'll get it next week. I'll get it next week.
That's good. Mm-hmm.
It's over.
It's over. Yeah.
You don't get to see most of those people ever again.
Yeah.
I just saw them with the juniors. I was saying, these seniors, you might not ever see them again. Hey, you're not.
Yeah.
And you tell how many people I've seen since high school.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any of them. I might have run into them when I went home and went to Walmart, but that opportunity's gone.
Yeah.
And we've allowed those opportunities to fly by us instead of being bold.
Yeah. How
many salvations did we just cut off?
Yeah. Yeah. Because we set our own boundaries.
We set our boundaries.
Yep. And you're exactly right, man. That was good. That was really good. Tanner, you impress me every time we get to meet, buddy. Love you to death. Miss y'all. Miss the youth. We miss adults. Miss all our Bible study. If we can do anything, please let us know. I enjoy doing these Bible studies with Tanner. We're going to keep you on Wednesday nights with me from now on. All right, let's pray and we'll close out.
Before we close, youth, be looking this week. Possibly looking Friday night. I hadn't determined time yet, but I'll be posting on the Facebook page. We're going to start doing Zoom meetings. Because I don't know how long this is going to be before we get to meet again and be together. But I found this week is Zoom's actually still pretty fun, and you still get to goof off with everybody, and I get to talk to y'all. And we can continue this walk through Acts, even though we're not together, even though the next part's my favorite part, and I wanted to do it in person, but hey, time keeps moving. I need to keep the gospel moving. And so look out this Friday. I'll be sending out information to your parents. If you don't have the ability, because you don't have data, or you don't have the ability to look at Zoom, but you're looking at somebody else's, you find out through somebody else, please let me know. Call me, text me, get your parents to call me, text me. We'll find out a way for you to be able to join the Zoom meetings. Because I love y'all, and I miss y'all.
All right, let's pray. Father God, we thank you so much for this time we get to fellowship and get to share God's word and break it down with each other. God, we just thank you for all the people that continue to serve you and do the things that we can do in this time, God, of just uncertainty. And God, we just pray for this uncertain time, Father. We pray that we would be bold and that we would not ever take for granted the time that we have with you going forward, maybe. God, we just thank you for all many blessings you do for us. We love you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I like our fire.
I guess we made the time limit.
If this thing stopped recording. Oh, no, it didn't. We done good.